And thank you for taking time away from your demanding day to attend the critical conversation meeting this evening with our superintendent of schools. Tonight you are in for a special treat if this is your first time attending any of our critical conversation meetings. This is an opportunity for you to share and exchange critical information that will help us grow as a school district and help to support our commitment to high performance. Dr. Beasley has some wonderful updates about the exciting things that's taking place in the school district right now. So without further ado, I will introduce to some and bring to the podium to those who are very familiar with our superintendent of schools, Dr. Mortice J. Beasley.
Thank you, Jada. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I apologize for being late. I was coming from a meeting with the Drew High School faculty, and I didn't realize the traffic was going to be as heavy as it was, so I do apologize. But thank you all for being here on the day. Let's see who we have here. Parents, wave your hands. Very good, very good. I know staff members, employees, excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, we're glad to have everyone here. Community leaders, any community leaders, anyone? Okay, very good. We're glad to have you here today, and this is really our last community forum before we break for the holidays, Thanksgiving, and then of course before the winter holidays. So we've been really working diligently to touch every community and to give our community a chance, our various communities a chance to hear what the areas of focus are and what we're doing to move our school system in a positive direction with the intention of producing higher levels of performance within our school system. And so what I'd like to do today is, consistent with what we've done with the other meetings, is use this diagram and just talk about the 5 areas of focus and things that we're doing. And once I do that, then we'll give you a chance as constituents, parents, and all to share any comments, questions, ideas, etc. that you may have. So what I'd like to do, if you would, just take a look at the visual. And notice in the center of the visual we have our students. And I just want our community to know that we're committed to ensuring that whatever decision we make, it's about our students. I work with a team of individuals that I'll introduce in a second that are in place and where they are because they believe in students. They believe in doing what's good for children. And we know, all of us have been through education, whether it be K-12 and college education, etc. We know the value of adults making decisions focused on who? On children. And you'll see that it's our commitment and our expectation that every decision we make is about our children. Every decision, period. And so we are going to be very intentional when we ask questions, when people bring us ideas. How is it going to benefit children? Is it good for children? And so the 5 areas of focus that you'll see directly surrounding the students are so that our students can be successful. We want our students to be successful. We want them to perform at higher levels. And we want our students to have the experience of going to a great school system. I just believe every child ought to be able to go to a great school and a great school system. And those of us who are positioned to help to make that a reality, we should work diligently to do so. The first area of focus is academically challenging and safe environments. That's just our way of saying every student should walk in a classroom and get great levels of instruction, period. It ought to be a safe school. You ought to have great instruction. It ought to be an environment where students are engaged. It should be an environment where students feel safe. It should be an environment where students feel like they're learning at very high levels. And I want you all to know that we're committed to ensuring that that happens. What I'd like you to do is, because we started off with instruction, and I want you to know that the team that we have, the principals and administrators, we're committed to ensuring that we improve the quality of instruction in every school and in every classroom. In every school and in every classroom. Does it require a lot of work? Of course it does. Will it all occur in 1 year? No, it will not. It will take time, but we've begun to do that work. So what I'd like to do very quickly is just pause and introduce individuals who are part of the cabinet. I'm going to start in the rear. We've got Dr. Smith over there, our deputy superintendent. I'm sure you know who he is. If not, you should know who Dr. Smith is. Dr. Simpson is our deputy superintendent for school leadership and improvement, supervising all schools. We've got Mr. Kenneth Thompson. He's our executive director for operations, which includes athletics, maintenance, school nutrition, SPLOS, etc. We've got Chief Treywick. He is our school safety and security chief officer. He's basically responsible for the SROs, the campus security personnel, to ensure that we have safe schools. We have Mr. Rod Smith, our IT chief, instructional or technology chief. We'll just say technology, right? Technology chief. We've got Dr. Sandra Nunez, our deputy superintendent for student support services and federal programs, and that would include areas like counseling, special ed, psychologists, etc. We've got our chief of HR, Dr. Jamie Wilson, and we've got some individuals here from Ms. Gonzalez, Harper, thank you. Harper Elementary School. Very good. What's your name?
Yolanda C. from Hawthorne Elementary.
Yolanda C?
Yes.
Ms. C from Hawthorne.
Yes.
Glad you all are here as well. Administrators, right?
Yes.
Very APs, right?
Yes.
Very good. Very good. Glad to have you all here on tonight. Any other administrators? I got Jada. Y'all know Jada Dawkins? She's our Chief Communications, Public Relations, Marketing Officer, right? And of course, we've got our faithful maintenance department over here helping us with the sound. Thank you for being here on the day. We've got our interpreters back there, wave interpreters. Very good. And of course, we've got our communication staff. We've got Ronald, Charles, and Miss Lady back there, whose names escape me right now. Nikki and Patrick. Where's Patrick? Where is he? Oh, right over there, behind him. Hey, thank you, Patrick, for being here. So we're here. But all of us are here to help improve instruction. Honestly, there's no reason for our school system to exist if we're not providing what? Instruction to our students. I can assure you that every decision will be made with the intention, the expected outcome of improving instruction. Students will only perform higher as we improve instruction. And I want to be clear with our community. We will never achieve higher levels of performance if we do not improve instruction in our school system. To this end, we've identified high impact instructional practices, K-12 in all content areas. We've given everyone clear expectations of what instruction should look like in every classroom. And we're supporting, we're coaching up, and we're monitoring that. We're collecting data, and we're working with all of our schools to ensure that instruction is improving. It has to improve. We expect students in all grade levels and all content areas to learn the standards. If they're learning the standards, it will show up when our students take the test, whether it be a school-made test, a teacher-made test, a common assessment, state test. If they're learning the content standards, they will demonstrate that they're mastering the standards. But we're also working to ensure that the students are safe. So this year we've implemented a tip line, hopefully. All of you have downloaded the school app. If you've not downloaded the school app, then you should. We're encouraging our teachers, our students, our parents to use the tip line to help us create a very safe culture and environment in our schools. Students, if they're being bullied or if they have some situations that they would like some administrative intervention on, they can use the tip line. They can do it anonymously. They can share their contact information. That's their choice. If they feel like they're in a situation that may compromise their personal safety, they can use the tip line, and it goes directly to a safety and security personnel who works closely with the principal, and of course it comes to our system-wide safety and security personnel so we can follow up and ensure that we're addressing these concerns. Let's say a student has just a bad interaction with an employee. They can use the tip line to let us know that. And so we're using this to, again, create a positive, safe environment, But we want our students and our employees and our parents, everyone to know, people often ask, well, what are we doing about bullying? There's nothing that Dr. Beasley can do by himself about bullying. Bullying has existed since the beginning of time. But collectively, we can all create a culture and an environment where we identify it and we do something about it. And over time, we should see an elimination or reduction, significant reduction in the amount of bullying that occurs in our school. But everybody has a responsibility. Some people say, well, I don't want to report it. Well, if you're not willing to report it, then I can't do much about it. And so we've tried to create a tool, an anonymous tool, if someone is inclined to do it anonymously, to report so we can do something about it, so we can make it better for everyone. Of course, we have our student code of conduct, we have our attendance protocol. We're working to ensure that our students are in school. We cannot talk about achieving high levels of performance if we as a community don't expect our students to come to what? Come to school. They've got to come to school. They've got to come to school, they've got to go to class while they're in school in order for them to be taught and in order for them to master the curriculum. The next area of support is academic and wraparound support. So while our teachers are teaching diligently in the classroom, we know that sometimes our students experience things that may impact how they learn in the classroom. Traumatic experiences, bad experiences sometimes, whether it be in the household, outside of the household, in the community, wherever it could be, or it is. So in light of that reality, our goal is to provide support to students. That support could be in the form of academic support. We're working right now to purchase a tool in reading and math, so our students who have gaps in their reading and math performance levels, they can address those gaps while the teachers are also teaching the grade level content. Hopefully, with that effort, teachers teaching, students addressing their reading and math gaps using this online tool, we will have more students performing at the proficient and distinguished levels, the two highest performance levels on the state assessment. That's important. We want our students to eliminate all gaps in reading and in math. We'll be starting with second grade students because our goal over time is to ensure that every third grader is reading on or above grade level, and then our work would be to sustain that over time. So as they go from third to fourth grade, our work would be to ensure that they're at least on grade level, but we want them accelerated as well. Academic and wraparound support are critical to ensuring that our students have resources to learn at high levels and also to mitigate some experiences that they may have that may negatively impact their learning. The third area is professional development. We know that as we as professionals improve in our craft, our students will perform at higher levels. Therefore, we've identified 3 areas that we're working on. Content, basically, which means if you teach science, we need you to know what? Science. If you teach math, we need you to know what? Math. The second area being pedagogy. That's our little word of educational jargon of saying we need you to know how to teach. Not only should you know the content, you need to be able to deliver the content in such a way that students can learn the content and master the content. And then thirdly, in addition to content and pedagogy, we're working on leadership capacity. As a system, a school system, moving to higher levels of performance, we know that the superintendent needs to be high performing. The cabinet needs to be high performing. The central office needs to be high performing. Every principal needs to be what? High performing. And every teacher needs to be high performing. And so we're working to ensure that we develop and we coach up all of our leaders. We know, we're very clear. We have the knowledge and the experience and the expertise that tells us what needs to happen at a school in order for it to achieve higher levels of performance and to sustain higher levels of performance. We know what it takes. We know what needs to occur day to day within a school in order for that to occur. And so we want to ensure that those processes are occurring in every school in our school system. And so we're working with our principals, assistant principals, and others to ensure that those processes are consistently occurring in every school. Every school. We're pleased to share that we know that the work that we're doing is working because our CCRPI score from last year to this year, district-wide score improved by 4 points. That's the most increase we've ever had since they instituted CCRPI in 2012, from one year to the next. 4 points. And while we were working diligently, but possibly preparing to address 21 schools landing on the governor's list, we only had one school to land on the governor's list of eligible turnaround schools. One school in our school system. And that one school had the highest score out of all the schools around the state on the governor's list. Well above 60. That one school improved almost 15 points from one year, from the previous year to this year. So we know we're doing the right work. We know it's just a matter of time before we're not even involved in that conversation about failing schools, because our schools right now are trending upward. Our school system's data is trending upward. And we know with the strategies that we have in place and the momentum that we're building, that we will see a consistent trending upward in our data. We're going to close the gap with the state relative to our graduation score. We're at 69.6. We're closing that gap with the state. The state is at 80%. We believe that our strategies that we have in place, career pathways that our students are taking full advantage of, and we need families and parents to ensure that their children are taking full advantage of the career pathways. You say, why is that important? Because students who complete a career pathway, their graduation rate is 94% in our school system. The general graduation rate is 69.6%. So it makes sense to me that if we want to graduate more of our students, a larger percentage of students, then we need to ensure that our students take full advantage of the career pathway offerings that we have. That's just logic. We're working to ensure that we retain students in the 9th grade. If we lose a high school student, we lose a student in the 9th grade. So we're monitoring performance in the 9th grade. We're monitoring credits. We're monitoring discipline, and we're monitoring attendance in the 9th grade with the expectation that we're going to successfully see our students move from 9th grade to 10th grade. Because if we can keep them through that 9th grade year and get them in 10th grade, more than likely they will graduate from high school and on time. There are other things that we're doing. Credit recovery. If they fail a class, we're not waiting several years later to help the student recover the credit. We want them to immediately recover the credit, so they don't find themselves going a year or two without the credit that they need in order to graduate from high school. And so we have all of our high schools working diligently to ensure that students are being successful in their classes, but in the event they fail classes, we're offering opportunities for credit recovery. The next area that we're working on to support our students and to achieve high performance is family and community engagement, governmental relations, and establishing partnerships. That's why we're here tonight. We want our community to be engaged. They gotta be engaged. If you find a high-performing community anywhere in our nation, I can assure you that's an engaged community. That's an engaged community. Parents, community members, they show up at the schools, events, etc. We've got to ensure that our community has every opportunity to be engaged. And that's been the purpose of all these forums. We want our community to be informed. We want them to participate. We want them to share ideas, feedback, so we'll know that we're going in the right direction. And the last area is communications, public relations, and marketing. If you don't know what's happening in our school system, I can tell you, if you're a parent and you don't know, that's because you're probably not checking grades. Because everything that we publish, all the events that we're having, we're putting in Infinite Campus for parents who are logging in, which they should be, to check the progress of their children, right? So when they log into Infinite Campus, district-wide announcements are there. Schools are also placing school-level announcements within Infinite Campus. So anyone who has a child in Clayton County Public Schools should be checking grades. And so if they're checking grades, they should be informed. We're working to ensure that we communicate using the website, press releases, on social media, the good things that are happening in our school system. Just remember this, as we work with the government, Clayton government and the various cities, and we're very clear and consistently clear that if we're going to improve the economic viability of this county, we've got to have a high-performing school system, and we've got to start communicating the good things that are going on in our schools. All of us are recruiting right now. As we prepare for next school year, and our team is already preparing for next school year. You say, already? Yes. That's what you do. When you know this work, you begin to prepare. We're getting ready to do some recruitment, aren't we? It is not just the responsibility of the superintendent to recruit teachers. It is not just the chief of HR or the deputy superintendents or teachers and principals. It's this community's responsibility to recruit teachers. What do you mean? The messages that we give out and that we send out about our children, that we publish about our children, individuals who we would like to consider our system for employment, they look at those messages. If they find consistently that there are negative messages about our children, then we should not be surprised that we cannot find teachers who want to work in our school system. And that's why it's important that we have a competitive salary, but more importantly than the salary. A lot of people don't leave or choose not to come, not because of salary, but because of the culture in a community. A culture of low expectations where kids are unruly and undisciplined, and teachers who want to teach can't teach because they're constantly trying to tell somebody's child to sit down and be what? Be quiet so they can teach. Teachers don't want to deal with that. And the day is over where other folk have to tell our children to sit down and be quiet. We are responsible for our children. And our children, as I shared with a faculty not long ago, today, we're going to create the culture for this school system. It's going to be one of high performance, and when everyone who chooses to come to Clayton, they're going to sign up for a school system that expects students to perform at higher levels, that expects students to behave themselves, that expects students to give the teacher an opportunity to teach the classroom. So our students can learn standards and master those standards and perform at higher levels. It's important that we send out the right messages. So a few things, in addition to what's happening with instruction, you should know that we instituted some additional career pathways this year. We're pleased that at Mundy's Mill High School and Drew High School, this year we instituted the firefighter pathway. We have students right now preparing to be firefighters, and they are also being prepared to be, EMTs. Excellent. They'll be able to graduate from high school and go into a job paying $40,000 plus a year. We also have at Mundy's Mill High School the Film and Theater Academy that we're implementing this year, connecting our students in our county to the Hollywood industry, if you will, that's booming here in the state of Georgia, and in particular within the metro Atlanta area. So we're pleased about that. This year is a planning year for next year's implementation of 2 aviation programs, one at Morrow High School, one at North Clayton High School. How dare we be the county that houses the world's busiest airport, and we have no aviation programs at any schools in our county. We're changing that. And so this year we're planning to implement 2 aviation programs in those 2 high schools. We're planning this year to implement next year a political leadership academy at Jonesboro High School. We have a wonderful mock trial team there, a history of success, and we thought, what better school than to create a political leadership pathway that would give students the opportunity to understand very deeply what it means to be a local, state level, federally elected political leader. And all the knowledge, the content, and the expertise that's needed in order to do that. And so we're implementing the school, Jonesboro High School, right now is planning to implement the Political Leadership Academy next school year in the fall, August of 2018. As we move forward with our facilities, We're currently in SPLOS 5. We've got 2 more years in SPLOS 5, and then we'll be sunsetting SPLOS 5, and we'll be coming forward with a SPLOS 6. Our board will be entertaining a tentative timeline the Monday following Thanksgiving holiday, where we are basically getting geared up for a SPLOS 6 vote. Currently in SPLOS 5, you should know that in addition to the projects that have been done, we are preparing to build a new Jonesboro High School. We're going to start in SPLOS 5, and then we'll have to continue that work in SPLOS 6. We are in the process of designing for a new Morrow High School in SPLOS 5 in order to build a new Morrow High School in SPLOS 6. We are in SPLOS 5 working to purchase land for a new college and career academy that will also be a part of SPLOS 6. Our goal is to bring a referendum to the voters during midterm election, which will be November of next year. In SPLOS 6, not only will we finish with Jonesboro, we'll build a new Morrow High School if the board approves of the referendum. We'll also build a new Lovejoy school, elementary school. And so we've got to work on basically alleviating some of the growth, if you will, that's occurring in this area. We were looking at either a new North Clayton High School or a Forest Park Middle. We've decided that we'd like to recommend to the board a new Forest Park Middle versus a North Clayton High School, because we know that the airport is considering a 6 runway, and we don't know how that's going to impact that area as of yet. So we didn't want to build a school that potentially, with that area being impacted by a 6 runway. So we're preparing to get board support for the building of a new Forest Park Middle School in SPLOS 6. In addition to the College and Career Academy, in addition to some local facility issues depending on the school, some renovations, some upgrades, etc. Please know this, while I cannot tell you to vote for SPLOS 6, I will vote for SPLOS 6. But remember this, if it doesn't pass, we have no funds to do all the things that I've just mentioned to you. Does that make sense, everybody? And so the community, again, we're recruiting. Our students deserve the best facilities, don't they? And so if we're improving in our academic outcomes, we're improving in our culture of high performance, then it just seems to me that we should ensure that all of our students have access to the very best facilities. And we know that we've got to continue to invest in our facilities. Every year, some facilities are or all facilities are aging. It means that it may be time to sunset some facilities and build and bring some new facilities online. So those are some of the things that we're doing. Just know we're committed. We're here to engage our community. We want our community to be involved. We want our community to be informed. And we want our community to know that we are working on the right work. So I'll pause here. I see we have one of our board members, Ms. Johnson, has joined us. Ms. Johnson, thank you for being here today. So at this time, we'll give you an opportunity, Jada, to share the mic, pass the mic, questions, comments. This is your opportunity.
If you have any questions, just raise your hand and I will come to you. Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Beasley, and it is great that you have made great strides. The school system has made great strides, and you are continuing excellence and high performance. I do have a question concerning the high schools with the scores, and it is commendable that there was no high schools on the governor's list of troubled schools. However, from the newspaper, the state average was 77.6. Clayton's score 2 years ago was 65.4, and there was a slight drop. Now, this is your first year, so I don't, you are in control, so, but there was a slight drop to 64.8. So with that, I'm asking you, why was it a slight drop? And there's a concern, when I spoke to you at the last meeting, that in terms of discipline, in terms of, unruliness and this effect. Some think that there's a great effect, some think that it's not so great. I think that it is a great effect with disciplining unruly high school students because it affects the learning. Clayton County always has top-notch teachers. That has been shown, but if there's a lack of discipline, they cannot teach. So with that being said, why was there a slight drop, and what are you putting into place to increase it? And then in terms of discipline, what would you say now? I don't know your views, you might not feel as I do that there's not a strong disciplinary issue that I do, because, you know, from my vantage point, what I hear, it is of great significance. So I ask if you could just touch on that, please.
Thank you for the questions. I'll say to the first part of your question relative to the high schools in general did have a slight drop. We believe, we looked at the data, we attribute that to we didn't have as many students mastering the standards at the high school level. We do also anticipate that that will reverse this year as well. We know that our graduation rate went up, but we did have a few schools that dropped. And so we've identified some challenges at some of those schools. Some of those challenges could be related to certain populations, attendance issues, credit issues, etc. So we're working to address that as well. I'll say relative to the high schools in general, as we're working to improve instruction at K-12 in all schools, we've got to clearly do some targeted support to our high schools. Because if students come to the high school below grade level, then that basically gives the teachers an additional challenge to get those kids clearly up to grade level, higher levels of performance, while they also have to address all the gaps that they may have prior to getting to high school. So to address that, what we're doing this year, we have identified a tool in reading and math at the high school level. K-12, we have a K-8 tool, but we also have a high school tool, Achieve 3000, which is going to help us with some high school students who are really below in reading. We're going to plug those students into that tool, which assesses where they are, provides online instruction, and adapts to them with the intention of eliminating the gaps over time. Also, we're using Odysseyware, which will allow students to not just remediate in all content areas, but to also accelerate. And so we're trying to move all of our schools, but in particular, our students who are at the high school level, from a remediation mentality or mindset to an acceleration mindset. We're going to see improvements this year, I anticipate, but we'll see even more improvements as we move more of our kids to higher levels of achievement. We're also addressing issues relative to students who may be 16 years of age and still in the 9th grade and no credits. We're addressing those issues as well. So I believe the convergence of all of the strategies that we're working on will fundamentally change the outcomes that we have observed in our high schools' CCRPI scores. Now let's talk about discipline. I want to ask, what am I doing about discipline? I'm going to rephrase the question. What are we doing as a community about discipline? Our principals and our teachers and all, yes, we have a responsibility to set the culture for the school, to have high expectations, to ensure that our students basically have every opportunity to learn in a safe environment, to ensure that our rituals and our routines reflect high expectations. But I'll submit to you today, as a former high school principal, until we as a community establish high expectations for our students, then only one part of the community is doing their part, and that would be the schoolhouse, and that is insufficient. I need parents, I need community leaders, I need everyone to help us establish a culture and an expectation of high performance, of students coming to school, being respectful, providing the teacher an opportunity to teach. What we cannot do is suspend them all. What we cannot do is put them all in Perry Center. What we can do is establish a culture in our county of high expectations, where our students know that when you come to this school system, we expect you to be respectful, we expect you to come ready to learn, and we expect you to learn. Will that happen overnight? I will submit it will not happen overnight, but I can assure you we are working to establish that type of culture right now as we speak. We're going around having the same conversation with every faculty in our school system. We're discussing how the faculty has to have rituals and routines, expectations that are clearly and consistently communicated to all. We're engaging our parents. We need our students to understand that regardless of parenting philosophies, and every parent has a philosophy, but when we come to school, we are coming to school to learn. And I can assure you that our data is telling us that we're seeing an improvement. We will see nothing but more improvement over time, especially when the school system is doing its part and when households and parents and those of us who choose to have children start doing our part. That convergence is going to create a culture wherein we spend more time teaching and learning than we do disciplining students. Some people would like us to take an approach where we just get rid of all of them. That is not feasible, and I wouldn't be here very long, honestly. And that's not practical. But us working together, high expectations, helping students make better decisions, better choices, holding everyone accountable, creating programs and where we talk about positive behavior intervention, identifying students who are at risk, that's one of our strategies, mitigating for some of those issues that contribute to the discipline issues. All of these things work in concert to improve discipline over time. I can tell you, based on our initial analysis of the data, we are seeing an improvement in our discipline data. But we also know that we've got more work to do. We've got more work to do. And I'll let the team, if you all want to share anything about discipline, if you'd like to.
I'm just signaling to Chief, this report that signifies that our illegal offenses are also declining. So he can expound on that better than I can.
Well, yes, and to answer that, we are seeing decreases. And we're also deploying our SROs a bit differently as well. You know, Dr. Beasley mentioned how we're all committed to high performance, and I think that that's district-wide. So what we've done is we've looked at some of the training that we do with our SROs and professional development. And, you know, we're looking at restorative justice. You know, Dr. Beasley just mentioned it's not feasible to think that you can put all the kids out. Well, nor is it feasible to think that we can arrest our way out of this. That's not going to happen. So what we're doing is we're deploying some strategies and some techniques. First of all, conflict resolution. Sitting down, getting to the core problem of why the kids may be fighting or might be bullying. Dr. Beasley mentioned wraparound services. Well, we know we have organizations that can provide us with those wraparound services to give these individuals support. You know, I had a teacher just mentioned she's glad of the support that we put at one of the high schools because they're seeing a significant difference. Another thing that we're doing, we're using students to get the message out. So we're creating public service announcements, little commercials, and using students to be the voice because we know students think we don't know anything. You know, we're old, we don't have a clue of what's going on. But when you use the students for the messaging, you give them positive reinforcement, as Dr. Beasley stated. You won't see this overnight, but I promise you, over time, you're gonna see a reduction in those disciplinary problems and you're gonna see them adhering to those learning objectives and you're gonna see these scores escalate. Dr. Beasley mentioned, this isn't a one-pronged solution. This is a multi-pronged solution. The schools, my SROs, or our SROs, the parents, the community members, all of us collaborating together to make a difference for what? For our children. It's not about us. It's not about our individual concerns. As long as we come together for these children, I think we're gonna be fine. And I'll stop there, sir.
Thank you, sir. I think it's important to just highlight improving a school system. People don't understand how complex school systems are. Improving a school system requires a multifaceted approach of strategy, instruction, culture, I think culture is probably more important than anything. We are working to implement a culture of high performance in our school system. That's why we're working with the community. I noticed Mayor Joy Day, thank you Mayor for being here, of Jonesboro City's here. We're working, collaborating with every mayor, our commissioners, because it's about creating a culture where all of our community, all of our students, all of our parents understand that we're going to ensure that our students are prepared at high levels. This is some complex work, and I tell people, if you're going to do this type of work, it takes a lot of energy. Yeah, I'm tired and I'm ready for Thanksgiving. I am. But if you're going to do this work and do it right, my wife always reminds me, you can't do this work and not do what you're doing. You're not going to be able to do it. And that's why so many communities don't get there, because they think they're going to get there, this very complex work, but have very little effort. No. Anything worth having, Ms. Johnson, is worth putting a lot of effort forward to get. And that's exactly what we're doing. You got to hire the right people, and I got to make sure I have the right team. But I got to have parents who support the work we're doing. You can't, and I tell people, I reject this us versus them mentality. The only people that thrive in an us versus them mentality are those who are up to no good. You've got to have a community on one page. School and community on what? One page. You say, why is that important? Oh, it's all important. Kids get more opportunities. They're college and career ready. They have access to jobs. They have access to scholarships. And it doesn't hurt when property values go up. As a matter of fact, that helps a whole lot. When people start wanting to move into your school system because they know their children are going to get a good educational experience. But I want you to know how multifaceted it is. Not only are we working to address instruction, we also are working to address safety and security, as you've heard, but athletics too. People are looking to move into communities where teams are winning. I'm telling you all, it all matters. Families, I've had families that tell me I moved into your school zone because I knew that my students would get a scholarship, even if they didn't play, make it to the NFL or the NBA. They knew that students would get a scholarship just because of a history of what? Of winning. They knew that the kids would be prepared academically. Does that make sense? It all matters. It all matters. And so our strategy is so multifaceted. Instruction, safety and security, leadership, recruitment, bringing on the right people, establishing the word that we use as coherence. Everybody knowing what position they play, what role they play, but working toward those 5 areas of focus. Adults doing the right things. My team knows I have very low tolerance spending a whole lot of time with adults. Because I'm not here to spend all my energy with adults. I'm here for adults to work together to make it better for who? For children. And that's important as a community. And that's why we've got to work. And while this will be the last forum for the first semester, when we come back in January, we're going to hit the road again. We got to hit the road again because we've got to share what we're doing. We've got to get feedback. We've got to keep it moving. We as a community have got to get the word out that Clayton is the place to live, work, and play. Live, work, and play. I told the chairman, I said, listen, I got all these young teachers I'm hiring, millennials. You want them to live here? You better give them some nice restaurants to eat in. Because that's what they're looking for. You want them to live here, you got to give them some places where they can live, work, and play. I'm telling you, that's how they think. And I was at the Atlanta Chamber event today at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium field, and that was the message. If we're going to draw the millennials to the Atlanta area, we better make sure that we draw with the quality of the restaurants, the quality of the work opportunities, the quality of life. Those are the things that draw millennials. They're not necessarily looking to own big houses with a whole lot of land that they don't like to cut. And so you say it all matters. That's why as a school system, we have to work with our government officials, because I need them to do those things in order for me to draw those graduates from Spelman and Clark and Georgia State and Georgia Tech, but they don't produce enough. I need to draw people from Texas and California and New York and Chicago and other places. And so when they Google Atlanta, we need Clayton to show up somewhere in that Google search, don't we? And we need them to see good messages about our county. So it all matters. Any other questions?
I have a comment and a question. I'm a 24-year veteran, and I work with Clayton County, and I'm really dedicated to Clayton County. But this is for the children. The technology department does an incredible job giving us the technology we need for the children. But we have a committee of students at my school that talks to me about technology all the time, and the question that they always have for me is, will we get our own individual computers like Henry County? And they also see the children in the Magnet program for technology getting their own computers. So they literally asked me to ask you, is it possible that one day, at least in the high school level, could they have individual computers, because they're really excited about the Google Suites that the technology department has implemented?
Those are bright kids, and I'm glad they're observant. And I'll let Rod share, but we are discussing right now a one-to-one initiative, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to do it, because we know it comes with a price tag. But as many other districts are doing, they may be rolling it out one grade at a time, a few grades at a time over a period of years. So I'll let Rod, if Rod would like to share.
Well, I mean, Dr. Beasley really responded to it correctly. In Henry County, they rolled it out at Hampton High School first. They tested that pilot. You've got to deal with issues potentially of theft, so you've got to work with local law enforcement to make sure you inform all the pawn shops in the area. If those things start showing up, you've got to make sure that you come up with a fair price for insurance for parents to feel like they're somewhat obligated when they own a machine. So there are a number of things that you would have to put in place. It's not like I don't want to do it from a technology standpoint. I like it, but there are other things to consider, like additional staff. So right now, we probably have close to 40,000 devices throughout the school district. So if we were to give every student an additional device, and let's say it's just half of that, my support level goes up. So I would have to go back to the superintendent and say, now I need more staff to help support those. So I think it's a great idea. I think we'll probably see it.
And you see what he said, he would have to go back. He knows that's not the type of planning that we're gonna do.
Exactly.
We're not going back. We gotta do it. If we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it the right way. The right way. And so we're looking at a comprehensive plan of one-to-one, including staff, devices, insurance, recovery, replacement, etc.
I just wanted to see if we can check on something. One great support system that we had last year was using the Clayton Center, because we know discipline does not start in high school. It starts with us at the elementary school level. And I know last year we had a lot of support with them. Instead of suspending students, it was alternatives to suspension, so that we can kind of find out what's going on with the child and communicate with them. But since the beginning of the year, they've told us that some type of paperwork needs to be signed. I don't know what it is, but can we look into that to see what we need to do?
What's the Clayton Center?
It's on Battle Creek, and it's just called the Clayton Center. So some schools, including Harper, used it last year, and it helped us with our students with the behavior problems, so that we didn't have to suspend. The parents would take them there, get evaluations and such, and discuss with us what was going on, so that
Now we have Hearts of Hope. Hearts of Hope.
It was,
But I'm not aware
it
of
was like I See Red, Chasing Character. It was like 5 different programs, but we no longer have that, and they just keep saying that something needs to get signed.
We'll let Dr. Nunez, so just talk to her, because I'm not familiar with Clayton Center. I've heard of Hearts of Hope, but she'll check into it, and she doesn't necessarily have to respond, but she should check into it, okay? Very good. Any other questions? comments? Well, I'm not gonna pull it out of you because I'm tired too. Thank you again, Ms. Johnson, for being here. Let's give our board member a great round of applause. Mayor, thank you for being here. Leadership, we appreciate it. To the parents, thank you all. You all are our advocates, and just know we're on the team with you. We're on the team with you. Thanks, everybody. Administrators and all, y'all go get some rest because I need you at work tomorrow, okay? Have a good one.